on which ground the agile mindset. By the way, agile is not a methodology. Agile is a mindset, and there are certain methodologies which promote the idea of agile. Scrum, Kanban, Lean, extreme programming. There are others as well. These are different methodologies which implement the underlying idea of agile, and that underlying idea is actually based on the manifesto and 12 principles. I'm going to talk about the manifesto, and if you understand the manifesto, then you are going to understand those 12 principles very easily. So there are 4 pointers in Agile Manifesto, and this is not given by PMI. This is given by the Agile bodies. PMI just, they just accept this idea, or they just advocate this idea. Agile Manifesto is like, you can call it a mantra of agile, like how agile is perceived, how that mindset is perceived. So there are 4, and this manifesto has given over predictive mindset. Right? So the first pointer in the Agile Manifesto is keeping a strong focus on individuals and their interactions. What does that mean? It means that giving empowerment to individuals, to the team members, to the to whoever is associated in that agile projects, with a special focus on the development team members or the project team members. Unlike predictive mindset, where it's very hierarchy based, that you can only speak to this this level of group, you can't really speak to that person, or you can't really go to that person for escalations or for approvals or this and that, because in the predictive mindset you are very much defined by the hierarchy in the project. Agile mindset usually doesn't go that way. If you need to speak to someone, you usually are not really expected to take permission from anyone. You are not really expected to not to speak to maybe a senior manager or to a customer professional or this and that. If it is needed, you can do that, of course, within the organizational processes and within the within the boundaries. But there is, like I said, there's less bureaucracy involved in agile mindset than in a predictive mindset. Predictive mindset is very much oriented to processes and tools and following a very hard and fast plan and hierarchy and structure oriented approach in the organization. The second pointer talks about working software. So maybe you wonder that what do we mean by software over here? Are we only applying these concepts to IT or software industry? So the answer to this is, when agile mindset was devised, or it was originally delivered, this is correct that this mindset was meant for software industry, to be specific, but later on other industries adopted this idea as well. However, the manifesto is still the same. So working software means working product. Agile puts a strong focus on product, what you are making, and whatever it takes to get to that point. So whatever is not helpful, you just don't do it, and whatever is needed, you just do it, which is also termed as eliminating waste. So something which is not needed and you are doing it for just for the sake of doing it, or for the sake of following a process, or for the sake of following a command or directive from your boss or from someone else in the hierarchy, Agile doesn't promote that idea. Let me give you an example. Maybe in your predictive mindset, you create a lot of documentation. Maybe some of those documentations are not really necessary. maybe you are just doing it as part of the process. If somebody asks you why you are creating it, the answer to that is because my boss has asked me, or maybe because I was directed to do that, right? There is no very you know uh, concrete logical answer you may have for that. You are just following a process. Something is needed because it fulfills someone's ego, or it it gives someone higher in the hierarchy a sense of satisfaction. You are just creating it for the sake of it. In predictive mindset or in the functional hierarchical setup, this is very common. You create a lot of artifacts, a lot of documents, a lot of plans for the same reason. No, later on, nobody really follows that in the project. Agile doesn't promote that idea. Agile says that if you need anything, any documentation, any artifact, any plan, any tool, any technique, any analysis, any research, any kind of artifact. Artifact includes everything. Then definitely go for that, but don't make it for the sake of making it, right? So that's exactly what the second point is, that work towards the productivity only. Don't waste your time, your project time, your resources, your tools, your uh, like everything in turn is associated with the cost. So save that cost or time so that you could utilize it in more productivity. Rather, you just focus on documenting everything, even when you know that nobody's later going to use it. But necessary documentation is needed. Unnecessary artifacts or documentation is not promoted by the Agile. But in predictive, as part of the process, you may need a lot of artifacts and documents that you need to create because that's a process. Then the third point talks about, which is like one very touchy area in project management, the customer involvement. And when we say customer, it's not literal customer. It can be stakeholders, it can be senior management, it can be anyone who you need to interact with, and they are not just picking up the call or responding to emails, or they are not showing up. Agile is not going to give them that luxury that they can sit on approvals, or they are not going to provide their feedback when they are expected to. Customer involvement and collaboration at every step is required. And the way of doing that is making them part of the planning process, making them part of the iteration validation and iteration review process, and making them accountable for the validation of the deliverables of each of the iterations. Because only with that validation you can you can certify that this part of the this part of the product or this part of the increment is done and validated by the customer. So they need to own it from the very beginning till the end and throughout. They are not going to show up in the beginning and towards the end, as in the case of predictive. And in predictive mindset, if you expect the customer to show up at different steps, then they are going to say that, see, everything we have documented in the contracts. If you need any support or any opinion from us, just refer the contract, because the contract is going to give you a narrative of what we expect. Contracts are, by the way, people at times they think that contracts are not there in Agile. This is not true. Agile projects are also they are also awarded by signing a contract between the vendor and the customer organization. But that doesn't mean that whatever is expected from the product is written in the contract, because it's Agile. It can change a lot with respect to the initial idea which was presented during the contract making. So only contract is not going to give you a full picture at least in Agile. And I believe in predictive as well, because even in the predictive mindset, what you perceive as two entities, the buyer and vendor entity, may change a lot during the planning and during the, during the detailing of that project. So only contract is not going to give you that complete picture, and just because contract is there, your responsibility and accountability as a customer, organization, or representative is not going to get fulfilled. Yes, Esan, you have a question.
So what I understood that if something is not in the contract, Agile is still going to cater that. But
Yes. Yes, please complete.
yeah, so, I think contract is the Bible of the project. So if you're saying that we are going to breach the contract in order to collaborate with the customer, we can't do that.
No, no, no.
Whatever
I'm
is
not saying
given.
it.
Yeah.
I'm
So
not saying it. I'm not saying to breach the contract. I am just saying that contract may not be that specific as you may want customer to be during the making of the product, right? For instance, a contract is like talking about a very high level milestone, right? And usually this is the case. Contract is not usually your detailed scoping. Contract is not usually your detailed elaboration of what you want or what you are going to do in the project. You do that during the planning process or during the different elaboration sessions with the customer and with the other different stakeholders. So contract alone is not going to give you as a team or as a performing organization, contract alone is not going to be helpful to get every question of your answered, right? For instance, contract based milestone says that the first milestone is about discovery. The second milestone is about requirement elicitation and analysis. The third milestone is about UI, UX, and design. The fourth milestone is about the system architecture and the database creation. There are no details over there. There are no details about the design. There are no details about what is going to be constituted for requirement elicitation and analysis, because at that point you don't have that much detail and you don't need to go to that detail. So if later on your customer says that, see, everything is written in the contract, you are only going to tell them to see only milestones or the very high level milestones or the main checkpoints are stated over there, which usually is the case when you are
yeah, but the same case is in the traditional mindset. So if we are like signing any contract for traditional projects, so they would have the same contract won't be covering all the specs. The documentation after that created would be covering all the specs. We would know that what would be the milestones and what would be everything after we have signed the contracts. So what would be the difference that the agile is giving over the customer they are giving customer collaboration over the contract negotiations.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. So when you so contract more or less for the agile and for the predictive looks very same way. However, there is a difference when you get into the detailed planning phase of the project. I'm talking about the predictive first. In case of detailed planning phase, when you approach the project the predictive way, you are already with the requirement elicitation and brainstorming and different other type of sessions that you do with your customers. You get your requirement, then you document it, then you get it vetted, then you get the scope line done, and then you schedule it based on that, and you proceed the project based on that idea, which is a predictive way of working, right? In case of agile, you don't have that luxury, for the reason that uh, nothing is certain, at least for the whole project, right? This is how the agile is. So you get that certainty from the customer itself for the planning and for the validation by inviting them in the validation session or in the demonstration session, right? So this is exactly what the difference is, that although the contract is going to be there, however, and by the way, over here, the contract is mapped with the idea of a detailed plan, which is there in predictive, and which is not going to be available in agile mindset. Right? If you want to map it this way, a contract can be a literal contract, and a contract can be in the form of a hard and fast plan, which is termed as project management plan in PMI language, which is going to be there in the predictive mindset, right? You have the luxury of baselining things or coming up with a plan and getting it approved from the customer in the planning phase, and then following that plan in the execution phase in predictive. But you don't have that luxury in the adaptive mindset. For that, it's necessary that customer is available, because things are continuously evolving and changing in nature, and you don't have that much luxury to to put that on stake, whatever you are developing. Later on, if customer is going to say that no, I'm not going to accept it, and yet they are going to say it like very later in the phase towards the release delivery or so, you don't have that much luxury. Is exactly for the same reason the customer is going to be involved, and they are needed to be involved in every iteration, if that makes sense.
But my understanding is that the if whatever we have committed in the contract, that remains the same. We have the luxury in agile to follow and to manipulate the plan. Like if we are following A B C D, we can do A D C D. All right, but we don't have the luxury to add or remove something which have we have already committed in the contract.
I'm saying the same thing. I'm not saying that, because contract is a legal entity, right? So you can't really breach contract. We are not talking about breaching the contract at all. We are just saying that don't only put everything on the contract and you remove yourself from the picture. That luxury is not there for the customers in India. We are not saying that we are going to breach the contract. No, nobody is going to say anywhere in this overall discussion. It's not about breaching the contract. It's about elaboration of the contract is needed via planning sessions, via sprint planning sessions, via different other backlog grooming sessions, and different other type of sessions with which that contract is going to be elaborated, and nevertheless the customers are needed for that. Who is going to elaborate that? Like, only contract is not going to define that until and unless you don't have the customers available over there, because things are continuously changing and volatile and ambiguous in nature as well in HR, right?
Okay.
Are we aligned now? So
Yes.
contract breach is not the conversation, not at all. That's a very illegal and unethical thing to do. We are not talking about that. We are just saying that just putting everything on contract, and you say that we have written everything over there, and whatever you need to take from us, you get it from contract, is not the solution, at least in agile mindset. That may be the case in predictive mindset, for the reason that most of the things are certain in nature in predictive mindset, that by the time you create contracts, usually you have maybe not 100% certainty, but maybe 60-70% certainty. So that kind of conversation may apply, may or may not apply in predictive mindset, but certainly this doesn't apply in adaptive mindset. I think Ali, you want to say something?
Yes, Tuba, I have a question, rather a comment related
Yeah,
to
sure.
this. So, no contract, in my opinion, stops a customer coming tomorrow and saying, "Hey, I want to add something this. I want another feature in the product." Customer doesn't say that, "Hey, we will stop the customer." Sorry, contract doesn't say we'll stop the customer at the gate saying, "Why did you come and give us a new feature?" Because as it's an evolving market, everything is changing, demands are changing. So perhaps customer tomorrow in another iteration meeting can come and say, "Hey, I desire another thing to be added in my overall feature of the product," right?
So now this is a bigger conversation actually. You are right. And this may have a little more context. So it's not that open as well. It's not that open as well, that customer may ask for anything and everything whenever they want, right?
Sure.
Usually when you, so like I say, it's a different and a more detailed conversation, but like very broadly, when you do contracts, you usually document a section stating that within this range of changes, we are like it's going to be like certain percent variation or certain percent, you know, deviation or what our agreement is. If it is going to be way more than that, then we are not going to accept it in the same contract. Maybe either we need
Sure.
a change in the contract, or either we are going to sign an altogether new contract, right? Or most of the time, in case of Agile, to be very honest, they get a certain, you know, budgeting approved, and they get a certain timelines approved for the overall project, for the overall product, like 1 year, 2 year, with a certain launch plan. And the scope of work they usually leave open-ended, that within this budget, whatever is going to be accommodated, we are going to get done with mutual alignment. And on top of that, we are going to get like another series of fundings approved in case of Agile, because in a case of Agile, most of the stuff is not known. In some cases,
Exactly.
nothing is known.
That's sure.
Yes.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to say, that the scope is open-ended within
Scope is open.
the constraint
In case of Agile, most of the
of,
time the scope is
of the contract.
yes. So if the scope is open, to answer Essence point, if the scope is kept purposely open, then this is not a breach of the contract, right? And it's maybe if the scope is kept open, then budget and timeline is kept intact. That within this budget and within this timeline, whatever we can deliver within the product, we are going to release that, or we are going to make that. And if anything is needed on top of that, is going to be added later on, or is going to be approved later on, right? So there is no hard and fast yes or no answer for this discussion. It may have a lot of broader context, right? And in some cases, you know, some of the deliverables are known, that within this product, we are going to make this, and altogether, these features are not going to be completely out of scope. So in that case, if customer asks you to accommodate those features or those major deliverables in that price, then probably you can say that, no, this is a breach of contract and we are not going to accommodate it because that's written in the contract. Okay? But still the details are not there, because this is HR. Details are not. Is there any other question? Okay, I believe everybody is good. Okay, so the fourth point is responding to change. This is known to everyone that Agile is very much accommodating to change, and change means anything that may change. Majorly the scope of work, but it may be you know, anything which may change with respect to the timelines, with respect to the resources, with respect to the expectations, with respect to the features, more and more features, as long as it's mutually aligned. So please keep in consideration that whenever the changes are accepted, it's not that you just dump it in the backlog. It doesn't happen this way. Of course, there is a process in there. And acceptance to change, first of all, is done. The idea of the change is given by the customer, and the acceptance of the change is done by the performing organization or the development, right? It's not that they keep on providing the change and you just keep on accepting it, like even if it is like way going beyond your budget or way going beyond the original budgetary expectation. So it's mutual. The change accommodation is a mutual agreement. In case of predictive, it's following a hard and fast plan. So you do have baselines, you do have plans, you do have you know, a consolidated plan, which is termed as the project plan. You do have management plans, multiple type of plans and documents with approval done on them. So the approval actually guarantees that this is going to be followed this way during the execution, until and unless a change is needed, for which you are going to follow a plan, a process as well. Change is not welcome in predictive, and if it is needed, you are going to follow a hard and fast process for that. Okay? Change is welcome in Agile. However, that doesn't mean that you are going to not pre-align it with your customers and with your other stakeholders, especially your budgetary authority, who is the sponsor actually. So this manifesto, which talks about individuals and their empowerment, the hard and fast focus on the productivity only, and removing everything and anything which is a waste or like just not value added, involving customer at every stage of the process, and in accommodating change are the four main areas which make agile the agile mindset, in contrary to the predictive mindset where the hierarchy and the organizational structure is followed, hard and fast process is followed, even if some of the artifacts doesn't make sense. Customer is going to be in the planning, and then they are going to come back during the UAT, and in the middle during the execution phase you are completely on your own as a performing organization, and the changes are not welcome. And it doesn't mean that changes are not going to be accommodated. Changes are going to be accommodated, but via a formal plan and with the approval of the authorities, change control. So we are not talking about agile is good and predictive is bad. This is not about good or bad. This is not about right or wrong. Predictive is right and agile is right as well. It's more about which mindset suits your project and your organizational setup and your team setup and your customer perspective also comes into picture. Please don't think about it this way that we are advocating agile. No, we are not advocating agile. We are just understanding agile. That's the topic actually. We are doing the agile introduction. So we are understanding that why agile can be helpful and where agile can be more suitable than the predictive mindset. Predictive can be suitable to most to many projects where agile can't really be helpful. So it's not about good or bad. At times, people say that agile is a new way of working and predictive is obsolete. No, not at all. Predictive is not obsolete. Never say it. All the ways of working are equally good and equally applicable. It's just the matter of whatever suits you. So that's about the manifesto. We are going to refer the manifesto a lot during the agile discussions and